Week 4 of the NFL season starts tonight at MetLife Stadium. What have we learned through the first 3 weeks of the year? We'll talk about that and much more with one of ESPN's best. It's the Jake Asman Football Show, and it starts right now.
Oh, yeah. It's time for the Jake Asman Football Show. Brought to you by BetUS. Expert betting odds and fantasy stats. So let's get into some NFL football. Brought to you by our friends at BetUS. So get your questions ready. Here's your host, Jake Asman.
Here we go. Welcome in, everybody. It is indeed the Jake Asman Football Show. We got a lot to talk about. I mentioned it at the top. Giants and the Cowboys tonight at MetLife Stadium. You could bet on that game, props, point totals, whatever you want over at BetUS right now. We are presented by BetUS. Here's a live look at the line. Cowboys, a 6-point road favorite. So use promo code YouTube150. Sign up today, and BetUS will offer a 150% sign-up bonus if you want to wager on that game this evening. Joining me right now is one of my favorites. If you watch Get Up in the Morning, if you listen to Greeny on ESPN Radio, you know exactly who this guy is. Paul Hembekides. Hembo joins the show. He's got a new book out with Mike Greenberg, and the book comes out this week. Hembo, you're making the rounds. Appreciate you stopping by this show to say hello and talk all things football.
Outstanding. You're great at what you do, and from what I understand, we have a mutual. Do tell.
That is correct. So Cam Pratt is a dear friend of mine from the Ithaca College days. So I know you work with him every day on the radio show. So a small world here. I'm glad we can make this happen.
Yes, of course. We have to make that connection. Cam's a good guy. And he told me that I should give you a hard time, but instead I'll choose to just do the show. Not adhere to his request. I'm looking forward to talking ball with you today, bud.
No doubts. Let's start with the book, though, right? I mean, I read the last one that you and Greeny put together, right? I got your number, where you basically assigned a number for an iconic sports figure throughout. And this one kind of following that concept here, right? The book is called, There it is, Got Your Answers, the 100 Greatest Sports Arguments Settled. It's available right now. Tell us about the book.
Yes, Got Your Answers. It's called. Wherever books are sold, you can find it. A lower price point than last time. We're selling it for $15. You can get it even a little cheaper on Amazon if you so choose. I'll give you the elevator pitch. After our last book, which you did a good job of characterizing what that was, we learned that sports fans were a little bit more into the debate and a little bit less into the history. And so what we did was lean more into the debate heavily for this one. So what Green and I did was this. We landed upon 100 sports debate, the most hotly contested sports debate. Then I came to him once we decided our 100 list with, we'll say, 15 or 20 options. We had 100 debates amongst ourselves, ranked them 1 through 10 using, as you might imagine, thousands of hours of research because I just can't help myself. And we spat out, in most cases, top 10 lists, in some cases, top 5s, 15s, or 20s. But by and large, that's what this is. It's a couple hundred-word blurbs, top 10 sports lists, and many of these debates that you've had amongst yourselves with your buddies, at the bar, at the water cooler. So I'm hoping it's a pretty easy read. Very easily flipped. And from what I understand, yours is coming later this week. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it.
No doubt. Now, let me ask you this. As you and Greeny are kind of going through this, I mean, what if you guys were on opposite ends of the debate? How did you ultimately decide who won the big debate in the book that you went with?
So for the most part, what we wound up doing was seeing who could just be most persuasive. You know, like he and I have such a good relationship where I kind of bring the data, the stats, the information, the numbers. Greeny has 50-some years of being a sports fan and then 30-some years of talking about them. So we sort of blend the art and the science really well. I can't say that there were that many issues where we landed on a contentious place for number one, but that's kind of the fun with it. Like any number of times you might be having a debate with your friends, you might not change your opinion once you guys are done arguing about it, but that doesn't mean one was more or less persuasive than the other. And so that's not a straightforward way of answering your question, but I would say on balance, or more often than not, Greeny and I sort of wound up in the same place based on the persuasion that, we may have used in getting us there.
Your relationship with Mike Greenberg, Greeny, I mean, you go back with him a long way. Is there a memory or a couple memories you could share in your long career working with Mike that really stands out, besides, of course, being a co-author on now 2 books with him?
Well, I can remember very, very early on thinking that he and Golick were just kind of larger than life, to be honest with you. So I was born in 1990. They started on Mike and Mike in 2000. So I can genuinely say that going to school, middle school, I was listening to these guys on the radio. And so the idea that I would someday be working with them was kind of a big deal, of course, when I got to ESPN at first. And so my very first day, we're talking about my very first day, they don't know me from Adam. And they ask me what my name is. And I say, my name is Paul Hembekides. And Green is like, yeah, we're not calling you that. So what do we call it? And then Golick's like, Hembo. And so that flippantly, that morning, my first one on the show, they assigned me this nickname, which I had never had, and it's a nickname that sticks with me to this day.
That's amazing. I never knew. I figured, you were just Hembo your whole life, and that's what everyone called you. I didn't realize that Golic just threw it out there, and that's how it all
First
came together.
day, because everyone, of course, on that show had to have a nickname. Everyone had to be caricaturized, and so that was mine, and it stuck with me to this very day.
That's great. Now, I see a question from Dado, who's watching the show live, and he wants an example of a couple of the arguments. You don't got to give away the whole book here, but he uses the example as Eli Manning, a Hall of Famer. I know you're an Eagles guy as well.
Yes, Eli Manning, a remarkably overrated quarterback. We'll get to that another time. 10 duos in NBA history. So what you see here, I'm holding it up now for your YouTube audience. We're the top 10 duos in NBA history. So you see here the question is posed. Here you'll see a sneaky Hembo trivia question, of which there are 100 in this book. So if that's something that you're into on Get Up or the radio, that will fit your fancy. You'll flip the page and you'll see our top 10 list here, and you'll see the answer to the trivia question here. So that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of the way we do things. Now, it's obviously no surprise that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen are one on this list. This is one for which there didn't necessarily have to be a ton of argument. But beyond that, there are obviously any number of all-time great players on this list. So I think one of the most controversial aspects of this list ourselves, and I'm guessing we're going to get a lot of flack for this, is that we have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson 10th. We have Kevin Durant and Steph Curry 5th. It's our opinion that the Splash Brothers were a lesser tandem than KD and Steph. Now, numerically, I think it's fairly obvious that that's the case. But Jake, how do you think the average sports fan is going to react when hearing that the Splash Brothers were a secondary tandem to KD and Steph, who were only together for a short period of time?
Yep, you're right about that. That's what's so crazy with a book like this, right? It's so subjective. Even after all the research you put into it, people are just gonna be like, "Nah, I see it this way instead."
100%. The idea here is that we can bring these debates to life. And people didn't like about the last book was that, for example, we have John Elway over Mickey Mantle as the person who represents Chapter 7, but there are so many great athletes that were number 7. So we got so many questions about something to the effect of, well, who else did you consider for that number? Well, in this book, we don't pick the one duo. We write about the first duo, but there are 10 duos that we have listed, and there are 100 of those exactly. So that's the thing about this book that sort of makes it, I think, magical, is the fact that, yes, we answer the question, but we also show you the thought process by which we got there by ranking all these things, in most cases, 1 through 10.
Once again, the book Got Your Answers, the 100 Greatest Sports Arguments Settled, is available now. It's also linked in the description if you want to purchase right off Amazon if you're watching this video live or after the fact. I mentioned you're an Eagles fan. Anyone who listens to the show on Get Up or, of course, listens on radio, you love your Eagles. So does Camp Prep, by the way, which is always great. Now, as far as this Eagles team, I'll start with your team, and then I'll kind of bounce around the league with you, Hembo.
Let's do it.
How do you view this Eagles team right now? I mean, they're 2-1. They haven't looked great, but hey, wins are wins. And the Cowboys right now, they're at 1-2. And we'll see what happens tonight.
I need to change my mindset. So 2022 was such a magical run. Jalen Hurts being MVP runner-up of the league. This team being an absolute wagon on both sides of the ball. 70 sacks on defense. Historic seasons from A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on offense. Unbelievably good coaching with Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. And so that's kind of like the starting point. The problem is that's a really high bar to clear. When you're leading the Chiefs by 10 points at halftime of the Super Bowl, it's unlikely that you're ever going to reach the top of the mountain again. It's so hard to get back there. It's hard to be that good again, especially once you pay the quarterback. The roster naturally deteriorates. And on balance in life, things are more likely to atrophy than they are to improve. And the Eagles have been a good example of that. All that being said, like Jalen Hurts, don't love Jalen Hurts. Fringe top 10 quarterback, not a lot. Top 10 quarterback, not a Hall of Fame type quarterback. He's good, not great. And he's regressing in areas that are candidly a little bit concerning. His average time to throw has spiked a lot this year, which means it's taken him a longer time to make decisions. Defensively, I think Vic Fangio did a really nice job at throwing gas in week 3 against New Orleans. Thought he came out with a wretched game plan in the 2-minute against the Atlanta Falcons. Long story short, this is a team with warts and blemishes like everyone else. I think they're the most talented team in their division by a long shot. I think they'll win their division. I also think it's unlikely that Nick Sirianni returns to be the head coach next year unless they clear an awfully high bar. I think if the owner Jeffrey Lurie has his druthers, there'll be a new head coach on the sidelines next season. I just don't think the Eagles could justify firing him after back-to-back playoff seasons with the Super Bowl in between.
As far as what we've seen around the league, Hembo, I mean, you work a Greeny every day, so I got to ask you a Jet question here, as a lot of my audience, of course, are Jet fans.
Contractually obligated.
You know how it works. Are you buying what we saw from Rodgers last week? Not that he's maybe going to play like an MVP every game, but what we saw last week, how do you view that now in the context on what the Jets could be going forward?
I think it's real. I think the version of the Jets that we saw in week 3 is is likely to be the version that we see from here on out. I wrote down 3 numbers why I think what you saw from Aaron Rodgers against that game against New England is so encouraging. The first of which is he went 6 for 6, 88 yards outside the pocket. He didn't complete a single pass outside the pocket in weeks 1 and 2. You didn't have to chart the game to know this. He looked an awful lot more mobile. Secondly, it was 10 of 12, 71 yards and a touchdown using play action. Was 4 of 10 for 30 yards using play action in weeks 1 and 2. That was his bread and butter under Nathaniel Hackett in Green Bay, and looked a lot more comfortable in week 3 against New England utilizing it. And the third thing I wrote down is he was really adroit in targeting his tight ends. He went 7 of 9 for 108 yards targeting his tight ends. He had 10 yards when targeting his tight ends in weeks 1 and 2 combined. Those are 3 very encouraging signs. Again, we're talking about small sample sizes, but football is an entire season of small sample sizes. What I know about Aaron Rodgers is this. We obviously have heard a million times he's one of the most gifted throwers of the football of all time. We get it. Yes. Inside the pocket, when kept clean, that's the case. But I'm not that worried about most any quarterback with his skill set when that's the case. What I want to know is what happens when the play breaks down. And his ability to extend plays and complete passes outside the pocket, to me, was very encouraging last week. And if he and Nathaniel Hackett are sort of in their collective bag, living in play action, and theoretically you should be able to do that with the backfield that you have with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, like, to me, that's a very good sign that the Jets offense is at minimum going to be representative, if not better, coupled with, I think, what might be the most talented defense in the league, or at least if and when Hassan Reddick comes back. I think the defense is that kind of good. I know that Jets fans aren't so encouraged by what they've seen, but I do think the defense is awfully good. I don't think that there are 3 teams in the AFC that are obviously better or more talented. I'm not saying this because I'm on a Jet show. I think Joe Douglas has built a stacked roster, honestly. I think it will take a bad coaching job to mess it up.
As far as some of the other teams around the league, you can go anywhere with this next question. Give us some big takeaways. What has really stood out to you throughout the first 3 weeks of the season as week 4 starts tonight?
I think Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are the best play calling tandem in the NFL right now. I think that he has done a marvelous job with Sam Darnold in year 1. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to necessarily keep up this pace, but we know the kid's really talented. We know that he has Justin Jefferson to throw the ball to. But the fact that that offense has looked so good without T.J. Hawkinson, without Jordan Addison in the last game, it's a really encouraging sign. Aaron Jones has live legs. It's an offensive line with really good bookend tackles and Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. I think the Vikings offense is for real. And I think Brian Flores is the best defensive coordinator in the league. I mean, that guy's so good at his job. The way that he adjusts week to week, the way that he tosses like really exotic blitz looks at these young quarterbacks is a sight to behold. I mean, in back-to-back weeks, it was Brock Purdy and it was C.J. Stroud, and he was in his bag. I think Minnesota is legit. Coming into the season, I thought playing their over-under at over 6.5 is a good play. I honestly think I may have sold him short by not taking an alternate win total. That team's definitively better than Chicago, and it wouldn't surprise me if somehow, some way, maybe an injury, an unexpected turn of events, sort of luck of the draw, that kind of thing, if they wound up finishing as high as second in the NFC North. I mean, we know the Packers and the Lions are absolutely stacked, but I think what we're seeing from the Vikings is legit. That's probably something like a 10-win team based on what I've seen so far.
What do you make of the start to the careers for Caleb Williams in Chicago and Jaden Daniels in Washington? Is it too early to be concerned if you're a Bears fan that, second year in a row, it looks like the quarterback picked second is better than the quarterback picked first overall?
I think Caleb Williams is and always has been a media creation. Like, that's a very strong way to answer that question. But when I watched him play football last year at USC, I didn't see this generational quarterback with superpowers like all these quarterback experts told me he was. Now, look, we're talking about small sample sizes again. He obviously is talented. He has arm talent. He has escapability. He's twitchy. He does all the suddenness, all the stuff that quarterback gurus love. And for that, I suppose I can give him time. Jaden Daniels is someone whom I'm most concerned about just staying on the field because his frame is so slight. I have much less of a concern about his skill set. But I mean this when I say this. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Williams turns out to be a stud. I wouldn't be surprised if he turns out to be a total dud either. I think if there's anything that we've learned over the course of time, it's that infrastructure matters a lot in pro football, and all the extra stuff, all the off-schedule stuff, all the off-platform stuff that everyone tells me is so important, doesn't really matter if your foundational principles aren't in place. And Caleb Williams doesn't look like a fundamentally sound quarterback to me. He's got more misses, more off-target throws, more incompletions attributed to him than any quarterback in football. And that's very out of character based on what we saw him do at USC. Like, the mistakes that he would make in the NFL, I thought would have a lot more to do with his pressure response, a lot more to do with his pocket management, not just spraying the ball all over the field like a paintball gun. So, yes, I don't think it's too early to be concerned. I'm not panicking that we drafted the wrong guy. 3 games is 3 games. But I think so far, Shane Waldron has not provided him good answers, and Caleb Williams has sprayed the ball around to such an extent that even I, as someone who didn't like him, wasn't really expecting.
Two teams that are 0-3 that a lot of people had expectations for. You have the Bengals and you have the Jaguars, both quarterbacks amongst the highest, obviously, in AAV. What do you make of this starts for Cincinnati and Jacksonville?
Not remotely worried about Joe Burrow, whom I believe is a top 10, maybe even top 5 quarterback. For me, the issues with Joe Burrow have a lot more to do with the fact that he's had trouble staying on the field, some weird injuries, some fluky injuries, some stuff that you're worried about there. They've never done a great job at building lines in front of him, which is sort of bizarre to me. It also is sort of a hang on to the ball too long kind of a quarterback. But their issues in Cincinnati aren't really Joe Burrow related. The defense stinks. They're averaging 8 yards. They're allowing 8 yards per attempt in the pass game since the start of last season. They should have
Don't
re-signed
tell that to our
Jesse.
colleague Chris Canty, by the way.
Yeah,
Jeez.
seriously. Yeah. I'll keep that. I'll keep that between us. Chris Canty has been he's been radioing really well with flaming hot takes on the morning show. And look, he's an astute guy that studies as much as anyone that I've ever worked with. He's more than entitled to his opinions. I see one flaw in Joe Burrow's game right now, and that's his accuracy throwing the ball in the red zone. That's not the kind of thing that to me is a fatal thing. It's just the kind of thing that they're struggling with right now. The red zone package isn't good enough. The Bengals needed Jesse Bates. They didn't. They let him go to Atlanta. He's a remarkably good player. It cost them last year. It's costing them again. When you have a sort of a problem solver at the back end of Lou Anarumo's defense and you let him get away, they're paying for it. They're a cheap organization and they're paying for it. As far as Trevor Lawrence is concerned, beware of the anointed quarterback is what I would say about Trevor Lawrence. This is a player who has no business not being great. He has no business not being good. And right now he's been flat out bad. And that's because he's spraying the ball every which way. I actually think, I'd have to talk to a quarterback guru to get a little bit better sense of whether or not this is just an anecdotal observation or perhaps a pattern of behavior. I think his mechanics are totally off. He's like a Carson Wentz 2020 quarterback right now, where like you just watch him and he's spraying the ball. So he's missing up. Like most of his misses are overthrows, which tells me, at least as a former baseball player, think about like a 6'5" pitcher who, when he's right, is shoving. But anytime the mechanics get tweaked just a little bit, starts spraying the ball all over the place because there's so many moving parts with all of his long levers. That's what I see right now with Trevor Lawrence. When you chart his misses, way too many of them are high. Those misses, of course, put the ball in harm's way, which, of course, is contributing to his interception propensity. I don't think Doug Peterson survives this season.
All right, final question. This comes from Cam Pratt. I said I was having you on this show, and he said, you got to hit him with a Philly sports trivia question. I got to turn the tables on you after what you do on Get Up every day with the trivia. So this is from Cam. You ready? Here we go.
Yes, sir.
Who did Donovan McNabb complete the most passes to in his Eagles career? We're going to give you an Eagles question because you're an Eagles guy.
Who did Donovan McNabb complete the most passes to in his Eagles career? So I'll do the thing like other people do on Get Up, where like I think about all the different options and go through them in my brain. I'm going to say that his leading receiver is not likely to be the answer to this question because those people rotated a lot. I'm also going to say that despite the fact that he loves using his tight ends, Chad Lewis and LJ Smith, I don't think any of them lasted quite as long. And for that reason, I'm going to guess the answer to this question is actually his feature back, Ryan Westbrook.
The answer is, according to Cam, Todd Pinkston.
Oh, okay. So Todd Pinkston, James Trash, obviously some of my least favorite receivers of all time. The Eagles could have won multiple Super Bowls had they not had him. So a couple things here. One, you got me. And secondly, you best believe I'm going to fact check that. And if it's not correct, I'm going to lay the lumber on Camp Rat tomorrow on the radio.
Completely fair. Hembo, one more time for those two again. Where can people find your book with Mike Greenberg?
It's called Got Your Answers. It's $15. You can get it anywhere books are sold. If you like sports, you're going to love it. That I promise.
He's Hembo. My name is Jake Asman. Hembo, appreciate you hopping on. Good luck with the book.
Later, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Hembekides with us here. I'll stay on a little while longer, talking some NFL football here. Once again, thanks to Hembo for coming on. Great guy. Big fan of him and everything he does over at ESPN with Mike Greenberg. We are presented by BetUS. Another reminder, we got a Thursday night football game tonight, folks. Giants and Cowboys. You can bet on that. You can bet on any NFL game, any baseball game. We got playoffs right around the corner. You name it, BetUS has it. And if you sign up right now with that promo code you see on the screen, YouTube 150, BetUS is offering a 150% sign-up bonus. So take advantage of that special. As far as the Thursday night game goes tonight, right? Giants, Cowboys. I really think the Cowboys win and cover, but they're playing so poorly right now. It's tough for me to sit here and say you definitely got to take the Cowboys. I just look at Daniel Jones in primetime, and he's been brutal. Seriously. That's why most people think he's so bad. And I'm not saying he's a good quarterback, but I think there's a stigma when you're bad in primetime. There just is. Everyone's watching. They're paying attention to you. And if you perform poorly, that becomes the narrative that you're not any good. Whereas if you play really well in primetime, the narrative is like, this guy's great. Like you see it happen all the time. It just dominates sports radio and sports media discussion the next day. And I can't shake the fact that Daniel Jones, I think in his career is like 1-10 in primetime games. And the Giants never beat the Cowboys. They never beat Dak Prescott. They haven't beaten Dak since he was a rookie, 2016. So I break down this matchup, and the Cowboys are playing awful. Giants coming off a win. They really should be 2-1 if they had a kicker. But I don't know. I don't see the Giants winning tonight. Maybe the Cowboys muddy it up a little bit, and it's a game, right? They're not playing well, so the Giants should be able to hang around. This shouldn't be 40-0 like the last time the Cowboys were at MetLife a year ago in a primetime spot. That game was week 1 on Sunday night a year ago. We're in week 4 on Thursday night, but I would take the Cowboys. I think they win and cover. I really would, but I'm not betting a ton on this because they're just not playing well right now. There's no doubt. Comments, questions, super chats will cut the line. Rich says, let's get the likes up for Jake's new gig. I appreciate it, Rich. For those of you who are new to this version of the show, it's the Jake Asman Football Show where we talk all things NFL, and it's not just Jet focused like the normal Jake Asman Jet show is. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation there. With Hembo, we'll have Cole Thompson on tomorrow for the usual, week preview of the NFL slate. That'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, normal time for Cole on the show. Hector says, I think the game tonight will be a lot closer than people think. It might. So we'll see. Let's see. Marcelo says, Jake, what do you think the chances are the Jets go 3-0 against the Vikings, Bills, and Steelers? 70%? Like, they're going to be a favorite in maybe all 3 of those games, but not easy to go to Pittsburgh. Bills at home is going to be tough. Vikings going to be tough. I think more likely than not, they go 2-1. More likely than not. Which, I think if you're a Jet fan, don't you got to sign for that? Assuming they win Sunday and they're 3-1. If you then go 2-1 over your next 3 games there, what's your record after that, right? I think you got to sign for that. If you're 5-2, you wouldn't sign for that? Now, if you're going to lose a game, you'd rather it honestly be the London game. But I'm going to that game, so I don't want to lose that game. I don't want to fly all the way to London to watch my team lose. But you want to win the Bills game, obviously. It's divisional matchup head-to-head. So we'll see. Giants are a good football team. The Vikings are a good football team. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy at all. Also, we got some controversy here. I just got a text from Cam who fed me that trivia question that I gave to Hembo. The most passes question is only receivers. Otherwise, Brian Westbrook or a tight end, if you want to clarify that. I'm going to say too late. Oh, man. Wow. So I think Hembo was right. Wasn't his first guess Brian Westbrook? The question was only wide receivers, though. That's great. Too late. Not too late to sign up for BetUS. Once again, shout out to them for sponsoring today's program. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation talking all things NFL with Hembo. The link to the book him and Mike Greenberg wrote that is out this week is available in the description right in the video you're watching here. It has been the Jake Asman Football Show. I want to thank you all for your support. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you're not a subscriber yet to this YouTube channel, make sure you do that. Click the like button as well. Enjoy a little Thursday night football this evening, everybody. My name is Jake Asman, and once again, this has been the Jake Asman Football Show presented by my friends at BetUS.